Got another tutorial coming at you. Got the Gangster Gurgler, very similar to the 239 Flies version. I do a couple things a little differently, but basically you've got a craft fur tail, some rubber legs, the UV polar chenille body wrap, a tarantula brush body, and then 2 layers of foam and a weed guard. Pretty similar to the tarantula brush mullet that's in the first tutorial I put up, but just adding some foam to this one instead of the eyes. So we're gonna go ahead and start with this 2/0 3407 in the vise and show you how we do it. You wrap on your thread, come all the way back to about the barb, and I forgot to grab the chenille. Going to just grab a olive, and what we're going to do here is we're actually going to bring it back past the hook bend and get a little prop area for the craft fur to sit up on top of, and that helps to keep it off the hook and give it a little upward motion when it's swimming. So you wrap that forward, bring your chenille touching wraps, kind of almost stacking on top of itself. Give yourself 3 to 5, kind of depending on how much you want it to set up. And then you're going to come back, capture that. At this point, you're going to grab your craft fur. I'm going with a golden olive. I've already cut it this time, and again, you're wanting a fairly hefty patch of it. You want it to have some good tail action. This thin enough, and it gives it a good swimming motion off the back of the fly. It also helps weight the back of the fly, so when you pull it through the water, it really pops and really makes a good bit of commotion on the surface for those deeper fish. Again, I'm going to come here, cut the tag in. At this point, you want to tie in your rubber legs. I've just got some crazy legs. This is a golden shiner color. I've got 3 strands pulled off there, and I'm just going to double that over both sides, so you're going to have a total of 6 legs out the back of this fly. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to lock that in and then splay it out to each side. Make sure that as you're wrapping, it stays on the side, because the side closer to you as you're wrapping across is going to want to pull it over the top of the hook. So leave yourself a little bit of a loose wrap there, and then give yourself a nice capturing wrap and pull tight, and that'll keep them both perfectly on each side of the hook. And when you're here at this stage, you can go ahead and trim to the same length. I've also decided on this one I'm going to add some eyes to it. I've got some mono eyes here that I made up just in a red. I'm going to get those wrapped in here just at the front of that tie-in point. You want to figure 8 across these and capture them in there. And then what I'll end up doing when I bring that UV polar chenille on there, I'll end up covering up that thread wrap. So I'm going to end up angling these down to the bottom of the fly, almost as kind of like a weed guard. And then once you get them set down below the shank, so when you come in behind and help prop that back out so it doesn't lay up next to the hook. So as you can see here, when you tie it down initially, it wants to lay flat. So come in behind it and you give it a good couple pulls out. And what we'll do is we'll also set some UV glue there to help set them where we want them. But again, kind of pull those off from the hook, get a couple wraps in behind the eyes to offset them from the hook. Kind of play with those a little bit, get them sitting where you want them to. This one's being a little difficult. And then you do that. Careful when you make these that the bulb you put on there to hold them in place is big enough so that you don't pull them off like I just did. I'll probably go ahead and scrap putting eyes on this one because I don't have any others made up right now. Okay, at this point you're going to come in with the UV polar chenille. Got this in a gold color. Just come right on top of that tie-in point with all your other material. Try to keep that all back in this point. You don't want to get much further on the fly yet. And then wrap a couple forward so you can bring this on. And again, good touching wraps here. You want this to be fairly thick. And this just takes you to the front of all that tie-in. And once you get there, you can back this up, trap your collar. Just give yourself a good clean thread point to tie in on. And as I said, I've got the foam here and I've doubled this up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut an angle in the back of the foam so that you lose some of that bulk, so when you're tying this in you don't have a huge built up piece there. Make sure I'm good and even. The goal here is to give yourself 2 loose wraps around the foam, get it set where you want it, make sure it's even on the hook, and then you're going to pull down tight. So since I cut through the foam there, we're going to try that again. Pull down good and tight. You want to lash all that in. And you want to make sure that foam, when you fold it back forward, is going to cover all the way back to the tie-in of your flash collar. So make sure that you have enough back so that when you fold it, you don't see any of your tie-in. You just see the middle of that flash. So once we get that good and cleaned up, we're going to come in with a 1-inch tarantula brush. This is in the Sculpin color. I'm going to lay that wire core down right on top and come all the way back to where the foam was tied in and wrap this on forward. Grab a pair of scissors you don't care about, clip the wire, and then bring your thread all the way to the front. At this point, you are just going to palmer this material forward, pulling it back as you go. Make sure, trying to avoid as much trapped material as you can. these are not touching wraps. You want to have a little bit of space in between. You're just trying to build enough of a body to this fly and give it a little bit extra weight when it hits the water, so it really does pull and that head really gets that good popping motion. These rubber legs in here as well make a really good, they kind of vibrate in the water. They have a good little motion as you pause it. Again, with this wire core, you can really pull tight on these. Each of these wraps, I'm coming over the top and really taking any bit of slack out. And then you're going to give yourself just a little bit of space in between where you tie in the hook eye for the foam and for your weed guard. So I'm going to capture this here. Again, grab the scissors or pliers, cut that, and you want to make sure that that piece of wire is laying flat because it will cut your thread almost every single time. And then give yourself a good clean head there at the front. Grab a bodkin or your comb and pick out some of those trapped fibers. Even as you pull back, there will be some that get caught. And once you feel pretty good about where you are, you can kind of take the stuff on the top and pull it down to the side. And then when you bring your foam over the top, what you're looking for is a nice little bend in the foam. And then again, you're kind of two loose wraps around the front of the head. And you're going to pull down tight on that. And pull the foam back at the front and give yourself a good thread head there to help prop that up. And at this point you can come in and trim the front of the fly to your desired height. I'm going to grab my 30-pound hard mono, grab the pliers and flatten out that tie-in point so it's easier to lay in. Invert the fly. Here I'm just trying to set that mono flush with the bottom of the hook. You don't want it offset. When it's perfectly on the bottom, you're going to end up, this one did not flatten very well. So again, coming in behind there, propping it up, and we're going to come back in at the front just to make sure it's all good and tight. Grab your whip finishing tool, finish the fly off, and grab your glue of choice. I'm just going to use the brush on crazy glue. Secure the weed guard. I'm also going to come in behind this foam to help make it a little more secure and prevent tearing, because that takes a lot of the force there at the front, and as you bring the thread through you end up cutting some of that foam, so that helps to reinforce it and prevent it from coming off. At this point, trim the weed guard to length, check everything else on the fly, and you've got yourself a gurgler. Something you can do is two-tone your foam, so you can see there's a tan with the darker brown on top. A bunch of different color variations here. This is probably one of my go-tos, the olive tail, olive body, and tan foam. It seems to be really popular and fish seem to like it. Happy tying, type lines.